Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we all enter into 2025 with resolutions in mind, with reflection in mind. As you will hear me say often, one of my goals is kind of live in the moment. I'll talk a little bit even more about that tomorrow. I picked a great guest to have to start the week. And really, in a lot of ways, 2025, although we did a couple of shows last week, we start the year in earnest this week as people come in out of the holidays and get back in the swing of things. I picked a great guest to sort of reflect a little bit about what is it like to enter into a new year. We'll get the latest from the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum and Convention Center, but I just want to talk to Matt about resolutions. Matt McDonnell, the executive director for the Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. It's good to see you, my friend.
Happy New Year to you, Ricky Matthews.
Good to see you. Now, look, just kind of give me the headline. As you and I were reflecting before we started the show, 2024 is going to be hard to match, isn't it?
It's going to be really difficult. We put some phenomenal numbers on the board. We welcomed, over 400,000 guests throughout the facility in the course of the year. It started strong and it ended strong, which was really a little bit surprising because we started to see some trends happening over the summer where shows were kind of being put on hold to announce tours, waiting for the outcome of the presidential election. And it happens every 4 years, so it's not any kind of out of the ordinary occurrence, but nonetheless, you still have to deal with it. And now we're seeing the fact that they paused will affect us somewhat in the first quarter, but we are thinking that the optimism is certainly going to run higher, quicker, based on the outcome of the election. And therefore, we think we'll start seeing more bookings hit our books sometime in April, May, all the way throughout the end of 2025.
Well, listen, Matt, you and I have talked about this many times in the past, and for people who have missed those conversations, you are a true entrepreneur, and your team works inside an entrepreneurial effort where innovation and focus on revenue and expenses, just like any other business, has to be done. You don't have a tax sugar daddy coming down the pike that's going to help you make ends meet. You have to run it like a business.
There is no tax support for the operation of the business. There is tax support to pay off debt service on the convention center, but that all runs through the county. They issued the bonds. We don't have bonding authority. The county had to issue the bonds. Therefore, the tax collections from hotel rooms in Harrison County, the portion of it dedicated to debt service goes to the county, and the county pays debt service. So we never really see any of those funds, period. And we certainly don't see any for operating. And it doesn't get any less expensive to operate the building. Power bill is due every month. Power company wants their increases. Insurance certainly continues to stay at a high level. It kind of leveled off for 2025, which was a good thing. But boy, it jumped so much in 2024. And that's all predicated on the activity during the tropical season. And, we're at the mercy of what happens, and we just have to pay the bills.
Yeah, I had a terrific conversation within the last couple of weeks with Frank Bordeaux about the insurance situation here in coastal Mississippi. And one of the things he said is that on the residential side, we're going to see, because of storms that have hit the U.S. and the impact of those storms going far inland, we're actually going to see a real push inland, all the way up Mississippi for that matter, to push toward the kind of building codes we have in coastal Mississippi. But one of the things he said is when he's meeting over in London, for example, with the reinsurers, the insurance companies that insurance companies go to get their coverage, is they're fully aware of what's happening in coastal Mississippi as it relates to building codes. And we've actually seen some reduction in some respects on the business side, and he expects that that we'll start to see some lessening up on the consumer side, not just because of our experience. And one of the things they noted, in fact, is that Hurricane Zeta was a great test for coastal Mississippi, and that we weathered that test really well from a loss point of view. But that we're kind of holding our own. But man, as you point out, when you're remaining the same or even having some slight reduction from what were already very high rates, it's a big deal, isn't it?
It really is. And, we used to be able to spread out our payments over, 90 to 120 days. Now they want all the money up front. So it's a big check to cut every November. And we just have to be prepared and put money aside, and we do that. And you know what? If we don't run this like a business, it's not going to run. And we certainly have never been a burden on the taxpayers here in South Mississippi. The building is paid for. It keeps costing us more money to maintain it because of the fact that it's getting older. But nonetheless, our P&Ls look good. Our cash flow is good. Our reserves are good. So we're going to weather a small downturn in 2025 and hopefully finish strong and go into 2026 with even more momentum and keep the ball rolling.
So let's take a step back. We'll review in a second, in a few minutes, about the year that you had and what you're expecting as we go forward. But I kind of want to tap into you now. As a professional, as a leader in the community, as a father, as a grandfather, you got your hands full as a grandfather. What a wonderful thing to be able to say. But just as a person who cares deeply about the community and your own set of goals, professionally and personally, I want to read a couple of quotes about the New Year's and just kind of get your thoughts on it. And the first one that I grabbed was from Brad Paisley. By the way, I had the opportunity to see Brad Paisley in coastal Alabama after the oil spill. I had the honor of leading the oil recovery efforts for Governor Riley. And we had this big concert down on the beach to kind of send the message to the world that we were open for business. And Brad Paisley played, and man, he put on a great show, really great. I know you probably know him well. But once he said this, he said, tomorrow, talking about the new year, tomorrow is the first blank page of a 365-page book. Write a good one. That's so true, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, depending on what line of work you're in or what the limitations are where you work, you're really only bound by your ability to imagine it and create it and execute it. And I kind of preach that to our people here is that, we have certain protocols and standards that we have to meet on a day-to-day basis, but think outside the box. Don't be afraid to come up with a new idea. Don't be afraid to figure out a new way to do something that may create more efficiency, cost savings. All of those things factor in. But if you're not thinking outside the box and you're just being a robot doing the same thing over and over, nothing's going to change.
Listen, people are going to think that you and I coordinated this but we don't. We don't have meetings before the meetings, and we don't. When you and I meet, we don't even have a list of bullet items. We just get together and we talk. But this next one literally builds off of what you just said, and it's actually a quote from Abraham Lincoln, and he said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." Isn't that true?
We've experienced that for 47 years. Biloxi, Mississippi is not a automatic stop on anybody's tour. It's not a place that meeting planners often think about when they're targeting parts of the country to go to. So we have to create our own identity. We have to create our own nuances, our own opportunities, and that's really how we have always operated. And that's the mindset we have, particularly being in a small market, 75 miles from a mecca that every entertainer in the world wants to play in, which is New Orleans. Now, you know what? Based on what we witnessed on New Year's Day coming out of the Crescent City, it's not safe, and it's really scary, the fact that just 75 miles away, what happened there could easily have happened here.
Boy, I tell you, there's no doubt about that. We talked about that in great detail on Friday with Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune and J.T. Mitchell, the news director of SuperTalk Mississippi News. But it's close to home. You think, New Orleans, and you know this better than most, New Orleans is historically, culturally, and otherwise connected to coastal Mississippi. The Gulf South region is, if one of us hurts, we all hurt. But, the challenges of New Orleans impacts us all. And that tragedy was it was hard to watch, especially someone like you who has been focused on creating safe events and all the work that you put in place. In fact, we're coming to the end of this segment. This would be a good place to start on the other side, talking about how it hits home with you because of all the efforts you put in place to have safe events. Man, we can't leave a stone unturned. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mac McDonnell, the executive director for the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day. And we appreciate you joining us, and we appreciate all the positive feedback. We're visiting with Mac McDonnell, who is the executive director for the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. And when we went to break, we were reflecting on this quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said the best way to predict the future is to create it. And he started to, really zero in on what it takes for the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center to be successful. Because the competitive landscape for events and for concerts and you name it is very significant when you think about we're near, especially New Orleans, but we're near a lot of significant venues, and we have to be innovative, and we have to make investments in the Coast Coliseum in very significant ways, which they have done. They used a pandemic, incidentally, as an opportunity to be able to do that. But we started to talk about New Orleans and the unfortunate terrorist attack that happened there, and we were about to reflect on what it takes to have a safe event. But you watch that play out on the Bourbon Street, and you immediately start thinking about all the things you have to think about to ensure a safe event. That all runs through your head, doesn't it, Matt?
It does, and the fact that we have open parking lots and open roadways to access the parking lots really makes it even scarier because how many roadblocks do you need to put up to stop these kind of activities? Before you worried about somebody coming in with an assault rifle and spraying the crowd and having mass killings. Now you're worried about somebody in a pickup truck, and it just goes on and on and on. But, our world really changed to where safety became so much more top of mind after 2017 when they had the outdoor show in Las Vegas, and a gunman, knocks a hole in a window so many stories high and just opens fire. And it's like people are defenseless, and there's really no way that you can truly prepare for something like that. But now people are having to try to figure those things out as they plan events, and it's only getting harder and more expensive to do so. Yeah.
But boy, safety is the number one objective, isn't it?
It has to be. I mean, when you're gathering crowds the size that we do on occasion, that you certainly have to be cognizant of people that are coming into the building. We don't allow backpacks in the building. We check people. Every person goes through a metal detector. We're about to upgrade that equipment. That'll happen in 2025. It's one of our projects that we finally got approved. So new threat detection systems will be in place at some point in 2025 here. More video cameras. I mean, I've been reading where people are objecting to video cameras in certain cities here on the coast. It's like, why? If you're not doing anything wrong, you want cameras there to help protect you. You want people to be able to be identified if they're acting up and in a position to harm you or to harm others.
We definitely do. And of course, as we saw from this terrorist attack that took place on Bourbon Street, all of the security cameras and other cameras that were available, the citizen journalists that were there, we're able to see an event like that, as tragic as it is, from so many different perspectives. And this really helps. It helps law enforcement. It helps us understand the gravity of the situation and what we must do going forward to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is a good thing. You're right. If you're not doing something wrong, you shouldn't worry too much about being videoed in a public space. I mean, that's so true, so true. Hey, the next, we're just kind of, that caused us to get off on a bit of an important tangent. We were reflecting a little bit on the year and just reading a couple of quotes from famous people who have different perspectives on a new year. The next one is more of a personal, from a personal perspective, but it's from someone who's incredibly, I would say creative, and it's Steven Spielberg. He once said that every single year we are a different person. I don't think we're the same person all of our lives. I love the way he says that. I don't think we're the same person all of our lives. From one moment to the next, we're changing. And one of the things I like to say is that the more we learn, the more we better learn how much we don't know, that the process of learning keeps us humble, keeps us wanting to know more. And, one of the great things about being a publisher of a newspaper or CEO of a digital media company was I got access to a lot of information. But I often told people the more information I got access to, the more I realized how much I didn't know. And, this was a kind of a constant process. Every day you woke up wanting to know more, wanting to learn more. And every day you woke up a different person. I mean, the more you learn, the more it changes you one way or the other. That's true in your world. It's a humble existence, really, when you think about it. You never really arrive, do you?
No, you're constantly evolving. In our business, sometimes we do repeat events on an annual basis. I mean, that's the secret to some of our success, is having an annual book of business. But those events that reoccur year after year after year really don't stay the same. They have different requirements. They have different security issues. Sometimes they have different technical issues. So you have to be able to be flexible. You have to be able to adjust on the fly. You have to be able to think outside the box. All of those things come into play. And as they come into play, you learn from that event that you've done 20, 25 years in a row. You learn from something new from it year after year, because of the fact that you're flexible, you're willing to adjust, you're willing to make the event a little bit different and create a little bit different guest experience for the people that are attending the event. And those are the things that if you retain that information and you can recall it as you're going through other types of events, it helps you make those adjustments even quicker.
Hey, listen, my son Justin sent me a newsletter about a year ago, and I get it now on a regular basis from a guy named John Tyson. He's a pastor at a church in New York City. He's from Australia, but he's been in America for quite a number of years, and he's a very inspiring guy. He's an incredible communicator. And so what he writes about makes you reflect about your relationship with God, but what he writes about makes you just reflect on getting the most out of life. And, one of the things he talks about going into the new year is that, being authentically in the moment. Don't sit in the bleachers, actively participate in life and take it all in. And as I'll reflect more about that tomorrow, actually, at the beginning of the show. But one of the things it made me think about is Theodore Roosevelt's The Man in the Arena. And talking about the credit only goes to the man in the arena, that there are too many people who sit on the sidelines and watch, and not enough people who are willing to take the risk and face failure. I mean, when you take the risk, you got to be willing to face failure. You got to be willing to face criticism even. And I think if more people would do that in a community, we would be a better place. But you don't have no one on your team, and I've seen you reflect about this, Matt. No one on your team has the ability to just sit in the bleachers and watch it happen. Every single person on your team has to be in the arena, don't they?
They do, and they all have to wear different hats, and those hats change sometimes by the hour, much less the day of the week. And that's really what makes this place so unique and so much fun, is that we do it on a really, really small staff. I mean, currently we have 28 full-time employees. Okay, and when I talk to my colleagues in Birmingham or Lafayette or New Orleans or Pensacola or other parts of the country, and they're going, wait a minute, we have way more people in our facility smaller than yours, but we've been able to do it for years, and we've been able to get our team to buy into it. And for the team members that move on and advance themselves in this industry, they have a base of learning that's really unlike many other venues in the country because of the fact that we manage it that way. And it also helps to keep the expenses down when your payroll's not through the roof. And it gives us the ability to pay a little bit more. While we will never compete with the private sector, we can't. We don't even try. We do try to give our employees the most compensation that we can afford and the most benefits that we can afford. And we've been very blessed in the 48 years now. We're in year 48 of this facility, and it's remarkable the fact that we run it with so few of full-time employees.
Listen, I'll share one more in just a second, but I'm just curious. Do you make resolutions? Do you have New Year's resolutions of your own personally?
Not really. I mean, I think about a lot of things as I'm winding down 2024 and going into 2025, what I want to do different in 25, or what I may have to do different in 2025 to maintain some of the revenues and some of the success that we had. And that's not a problem. I wake up every day thinking about how to do things a little bit different. And so when I get into January, it's the new year, and let's do something a little different.
Listen, when we come back on the other side, I'll share one more quick quote, and then we'll get an update from Matt about the highlights from 2024, a record year for the Coast Coliseum. And then we'll talk about the year going forward. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I appreciate you joining us today as we reflect a little bit on 2024 and resolutions going forward in my conversation today with Matt McDonnell, who is the executive director for the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. Hey, Matt, I got one more I'm going to share, but before I do it, we were just kind of smiling during the break about our buddy Kyle Curley, the producer of this show, who doesn't get enough credit, but he's literally a jack of all trades. And I mean, I say it on this show, and I've said it for over 5 years now. You can set your watch by Kyle. You can depend on Kyle, but you already know that, don't you?
Kyle and I go way back. Kyle's been involved in events in this facility for as long as I can remember. And, knowledge is important. There's no question about it. Motivation's important. Attitude's important. But experience tops it all.
You cannot be more right about that. I mean, I often refer to Kyle as a jack of all trades. Kyle, are you blushing?
A little bit.
It just means you've been doing it a long time, bro.
Yeah, I have. I'm working on that lifetime parking spot down there. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, we might find you one of those stickers.
One of those that's way in the back.
Kyle's the man. Thank you so much, Kyle, for the support you give both Matt and me.
Hey, you bet. It's my pleasure. I enjoy it.
Hey, listen, the last one I want to share is this one. I was having a conversation with Robbie D'Angelo over the weekend, and he refers to himself as a human optimization coach, and he's doing great work down in Florida these days, even though he spends time in Mississippi still. But his story is very inspiring. I love to talk to him about goal setting and about reaching goals, both mentally and physically. But one of the things he reminded me of, and he'll be on the show in the next few weeks or a few days, actually, and we're going to talk more about this, but that, people who do set resolutions for the new year, there's about a 90% failure rate. So people, they have the best intentions, but then they get caught in the sort of the gyrations of life and then fall off the wagon and never get back to it. But this next quote from Martin Luther King, I think, is a good one. And he said this: "You don't have to see the whole staircase, just the first step." So I think that's a good one. We tend to make our goals too big. Sometimes as an institution, personally, professionally, sometimes we just have to have a vision of where we want to go. We just got to be willing to take that first step. And a lot of people are anxious about that first step. But if you didn't take that first step at this Coast Coliseum, you'd be toast quick, wouldn't you?
You know, Ricky, that first step sometimes is hard to take, but we've been doing it for so long now, 47 years, and we're now into our 48th year. And by being able to have the flexibility that we have, being able to operate the way we operate, to where we're not micromanaged by a city mayor, or even the county doesn't micromanage us. They let us operate. We report to them annually through audits and through budgets. We report to our board of directors monthly as to the profit and loss of the facility from month to month, the activities that we've got going on. And that kind of model has absolutely worked here in South Mississippi. And it's really a testament to the limited number of full-time employees that we have and the quality of the commissioners that govern this building to allow their management team to run this facility in such a fashion to where taking that first step is not hard. But the main thing for us here is, while we do have goals and we do have certain resolutions that we try to adhere to from year to year, sometimes we do fail. Sometimes we do come up a little bit short, whether it's projections on a show that we think is going to do big business and it doesn't do as well as we project it does. But then on the flip side of that, we will book a show that we kind of lowball in terms of what we think it will produce revenue-wise or attendance-wise, and it completely surprises us. And that was really some of the success that we had in 2024, was we had more pleasant surprises than we had failures.
Well, it means a lot. It means your team is successful in marketing events. It means your team is successful in picking the right partners and the right shows. I mean, we're talking about big numbers. I mean, the financial side of this, as you and I have discussed before, big risks are associated with doing these shows. But you've done it. When you look back on, not even necessarily the ones that exceeded your expectations. I mean, some that met your expectations were screamingly successful.
Right.
What stands out to you when you look back on 2024?
Well, I think it was just a sheer number of major events that we were able to attract into a market this size. I mean, not only is the market small, but the building is a little bit smaller than some of the major artists are wanting to play, or their models dictate that they play. And we were still able to get them in here. And, you know, our expenses are a little bit lower. The profitability here is maybe a little bit bigger based on just the numbers that we are able to generate in terms of ticket sales. And those things continue to attract promoters. But I would say overall for 2024, just the magnitude of some of the major events that we were able to get in a market of this size.
What's an example of one? Give me one that really stands out to you.
We opened 2024 up with a bang with a rock band called Tool. We were probably the smallest venue on the entire tour for that show, and it grossed well over $1 million. It did record numbers in merchandise. It did huge business in food and beverage sales, and all of those things factor into the profitability of an event. And those kind of shows keeps us on the map, where promoters going, wow, Biloxi still is able to perform at that high of a level. We need to keep considering bringing tours through that market. And that's kind of, we just keep feeding off of those successes.
I should point out probably that our sister station, part of SuperTalk Mississippi Media, WCPR, plays a role in that, doesn't it?
Oh, man. If I didn't have Kenny Vest and the team at CPR, our market would just be a small market. The fact that we have a media partner, a radio station that still understands how to promote live entertainment and do it very, very effectively, that creates so many opportunities for us. And it keeps our name out there, because not only do the promoters recognize that we have an active, successful rock station in the market, the contacts that Kenny has in the industry know it, and they're the guys that are deciding where those tours are going, and that's really from the band's management side. So when you got the radio station that's connected to the bands and the building that are connected to the promoters, and they are all understanding the success that can be had in a small market called Biloxi, then it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a perfect setup, and that's why the relationships I have with y'all's company is second to none when it comes to media partners.
Hey, but what's interesting to me, being a former newspaper publisher and a digital media CEO, I came into the radio business really not understanding how's radio holding up in this age of digital. The digital world that we're in, and when a lot of radio stations are moving to more of a national footprint, and we don't have a real local aspect to them. The guy who owns SuperTalk Mississippi Media, Steve Davenport, has gone in a different direction. He's very local, and to purchase CPR the way that he did, and keep people like Kenny and Scott Fox in place. I mean, you think about this for how many years? 25 years? I'm trying to remember the number.
Yes, and 25
years.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday they're picking music in a very specific way, and they've done it the same way week in and week out for 25 years. The way they've connected with the community, it just shows you that you don't necessarily computer program that there's some local awareness of how that brand CPR connects with the local community, and now you've got generational awareness of that. That's what it takes to be successful over 25 years. Generational awareness. You've got fathers and young people, and even in some cases, grandkids in the car with these people, passing on this wonderful love of rock. And they've done such a great job of picking the music and staying connected in a very localized way. That's made a difference. And it's really impressed me to show me their commitment to this show, for example. It shows me that if you stay local, people will come to you. And it's amazing.
We're going to utilize that principle fully in our Crawfish Music Festival this year. And while we're not ready to announce the lineup yet, I will tell you that WCPR is going to be the lead dog in the sled, so to speak, when it comes to marketing, because the genres of music that we're going to start moving towards for this year's event is certainly going to be in their wheelhouse, and their ability to capture just what you talked about is why we're going in that direction.
It makes so much sense, man. It's tight integration in ways that a lot of people need to do case studies about. Radio is very alive and well. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Matt McDonnell. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with my friend Matt McDonnell and reflecting on 2024 at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. And we'll look ahead a little bit, too, as well. Hey, listen, this is the last segment. So anything else about 2024 you want to mention before we move to, what you're expecting going forward?
I just would like to say thank you to my team. They worked really hard to maximize every revenue opportunity we had and did their best to minimize our expenses to where they could. So I give them a big shout out, because you're only as good as your weakest link, and we try not to have any weak links, but when we do, we work together and prop them up and support them and retrain them and train them some more. And it's just a good experience to be able to have that success with such a small group of people.
One of the things you and I chatted about, and I know this to be true just from having been a publisher and looking at election cycles and the impact on the business of election cycles, and also the impact on ad revenue, et cetera, that there is a time during the election cycle, particularly in the presidential election side, where there is a bit of a lull in the action. And when you're in your business, a lot of stuff's being scheduled out into the future. And because there are a lot of risks associated with those bookings, so oftentimes you're going to see a little bit of a softness as it relates to that. And then, of course, you get the election cycle behind you, you get into the year, people start settling down, things start to get back to normal again. But it does make it a little bit antsy in your business, doesn't it?
Well, because of the fact that we depend on national tours, okay, and the word national is the key word. You know, what happens in California, what happens in New York, what happens in Nashville, what happens in Atlanta, all of those things affect what happens in Biloxi, and so when people are sitting on the sidelines going, well, we can't do this if this person wins, but we can do this if that person wins, then that kind of gets people thinking, well, maybe we don't want to pull the trigger yet until we figure out who is going to win. And I think we saw that, but hopefully that's going to be just a very short pause, and we're going to get back to the business of entertaining the good folks in South Mississippi.
So in terms of like big acts, have you made any big announcements yet?
No, I mean, we've got some stuff that we're working on right now, hopefully that we're going to be able to release in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, we've still got our annual book of business that continues to roll in, that keeps a lot of the bills paid. So we're not going to be slow. It's just a question of those major shows that have that major impact of when we can announce them, when we can get them confirmed, and that's being worked on. But one good thing you can always count on in the entertainment world, when they take a break for Christmas, they take a break. You don't hear from them, and we won't be hearing from them until later in this week that we're talking right now.
Hey, listen, we're it's very interesting. Construction is not far away from starting on the extension of Potts Ferry Road. Are you looking forward to that?
I don't have any choice. I rode to my parking lot this morning, before I walked into my office, and it's like, whoa, I got a chain link fence that's behind my parking garage that's cordoned off a big section of the footprint. Well, we sold it to the city, so we knew eventually it would happen. But now we have to adjust. Okay, now we have to plan. Now we have to communicate. All of those things become important because our frontline people have to understand exactly what's going on, why it's going on, and how to communicate it to the public to where we don't inconvenience them completely when they attend events here on our campus. But when the road is opened, and I'm hoping it's shorter than 2 years, they're telling me it could be, but I'm kind of prepared for 2 years that we're going to have to come up with some alternative plans and some alternative ways of getting people around once they get on our footprint. But you know what? It's progress. It's been needed for a long time. It's been talked about for a long time. And I'm thankful that the city of Biloxi and Mayor Gillich was able to get it accomplished. A lot of mayors talked about it, didn't do it. Mayor Gillich figured out how to do it.
Yeah, Fofo, in the last conversation we had together, he talked about it in great detail, and his expectation, as you know, that it's going to be significantly shorter than 2 years. It'll be interesting to see if he can achieve that goal. But regardless, when you think about the gateway into the coast, coming straight down, and now this being this is your, I mean, it's no more turning and zigzagging. It's straight down, and you get introduced to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And one of the first things you see is the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. That's going to be awesome.
It really is. It's going to be, and it's going to give us another way to ingress and egress the property. So anytime I can get people onto the site faster and off the site faster, it makes for a better guest experience. But not only the construction, Ricky, we're going to be changing out all the lighting, adding more security cameras, bringing in the latest in technology and threat detection equipment. All of these things are prepared to take place in 2025. So 2025 for us is going to be a year of getting the building in a little bit better shape and being able to provide some better guest experiences.
Well, Matt McDonnell, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. I look forward to chatting again when we've got more news from the Coliseum. But until then, have a great year, my friend.
You too, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And thanks again, Kyle. We'll have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.